Why are we afraid of money? Because it's not random and it's not an accident. Some of it we get from our parents based on what they went through, but a lot of it is manufactured by institutions so it can be exploited for profit. So let's talk about how those fears show up and who benefits when you're afraid of money. In my video, Scared to Invest, This Changed Everything, I talked about the personal fears that kept me from investing. So I was afraid that I might lose all my money or that I wouldn't be able to get to my money if I needed it. And I share how I work around those fears. And I'll link that video for you in the description. But today we're going to talk about a different kind of fear. This is the kind of fear that's perpetuated by financial institutions and employers and the media. Fear can keep you believing that you're stuck in your job or afraid to leave it altogether. And that, of course, benefits employers because when you feel like you are dependent on that paycheck, you're less likely to ask for a raise that you know you deserve or to negotiate for a higher salary if it's a new job. You're less likely to say no and push back when they ask you to take on extra work or come in on weekends. And like I said earlier, you're less likely to leave and go pursue something else. Think about it. What bold actions would you take if you weren't afraid about money? Employers know all this. You being constantly worried about losing your house or how you're going to feed your kids is what keeps the power in their hands. And frankly, that's what undergirds the whole system, in my opinion. So, tinfoil hat. I personally believe that a big reason that we are encouraged to buy homes and have kids is because those are irreversible decisions. I am not saying that there are no other reasons to do those things. Children are a blessing, all of that. I'm just saying that those things also happen to be the things that chain you to the system. Fear of not having enough money keeps you obedient and playing your role in the system. So, one thing that I used to do to shift the power dynamic is I would make sure my employers knew that I had something going on the side. I was freelancing or doing some kind of consulting or something because I wanted them to understand that I wasn't wholly dependent on them. One time when I was working as a contractor, the staffing agency wanted me to sign a contract saying that I would not do any work outside of my day job for the client. And I sent it right back to them and made them change it and told them I had a business on the side that I planned to continue. And they changed it. So that's an example of the kind of bold action that I was able to take because of not being fearful about money. If you're still with me and this conversation is hitting home with you, please click the like button. Thank you. Let's talk about how fear lets financial institutions profit off your passivity. So, one good example of this is the banking system. So, we're told to put our money in a savings account because that's the safest place for it. But meanwhile, the bank is loaning out that money that you put in there for auto loans and mortgages, and they are collecting interest on that money that is way, way, way more than the interest they're paying you on that savings account. Now, I believe in having a savings account. I did a whole video called, what was it called? Why I keep a 12-month emergency fund. And I'll link that for you in the description. So I'm not saying don't have an emergency fund, but when all your money stays in the bank because you're afraid and you don't invest, you are missing out on growth that could be building your wealth and you're enriching the banks. Fear can also make you give up control of your money. So, financial advisors and big investment firms can make investing sound so confusing and so scary that you think you couldn't possibly handle it yourself. And so, you hand your money over to them, thinking, I'll let the so called experts take care of it. And this one is wild to me because I personally know Black women with multiple degrees who are smart and accomplished who will still say to me like, oh, it's just too complicated, I can't understand it, so I just let this advisor do it. And I'm like, ma'am, you have multiple degrees, you are a doctor. What do you mean money is too complicated? Like, I don't understand how we let these people like snooker us into believing that we don't have the intellectual capability to do it. But unfortunately, through reinforcement and repeated messaging and what have you, that is what has happened. So people hand over control thinking that it's safer to just leave it to the so called experts. Some of these experts might be doing things that earn them bigger fees that are not necessarily in your best interest. When you leave everything in someone else's hands, you might be paying higher fees than you realize. You might be missing out on growth because they might not have you invested in the right things. And most importantly, you're left in the dark about what's going on with your money. When I got my first job, first full time job, I worked with a financial advisor who I really liked. And he tried to instill good financial habits in me that I really wish I had kept up with because I'd be in a much better place right now. But anyway, he was great. However, the firm that he worked for changed hands and they started moving differently. And then all of a sudden, every time I got a statement from them, there was a $75 charge on it. And all I had in there was an IRA that I wasn't even putting new money into, it was just sitting there. Um, and so I couldn't understand what they were charging me $75 for every quarter. So I eventually closed that account and moved that money to Vanguard, where they have much lower fees and they have better investment vehicles. This was at a later phase of life in my 40s when I, really started understanding investing and knowing a little bit more about what I was doing. But my experience with that advisor himself was great. So I'm not bashing financial advisors or saying don't work with one. I think it's important if you do work with one to ask if they are a fiduciary, which basically means that by law, they have to look out for your best interest as opposed to what makes them the most money. And I also would just say, if you are handing over your financial destiny to a financial advisor just because you are afraid of money, then maybe examine that. News outlets profit because fear keeps audiences coming back and tuning in. It keeps you glued to the TV and distracted and passive. And all of that feeds the system that profits off of your fear. The financial media in particular is really good about using fear. They will take the normal everyday ups and downs of the stock market and turn it into a daily drama. And they use a lot of unnecessary jargon that can make investing sound confusing and complicated to ordinary people. And that's on purpose, I believe. And that not only can keep you out of the market, but also it can make you panic sell at exactly the wrong time. And even though I know better, sometimes it can get to me too, right? And while you're on the sidelines, you are once again missing out on building wealth. That's why I believe we have to talk about why we're afraid of money and how it affects the choices that we make with it. Because knowing where that fear comes from is the first step in taking back control of your money and your future. And if you'd like to keep exploring how fear shapes our money decisions, then I invite you to check out the video I mentioned earlier. It's called Scared to Invest. This changed everything. It's all about the personal fears that kept me from investing and how I worked through them. So, my question to you is, do you think fear makes money seem harder than it actually is? Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts. And if you got something out of this conversation, feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when I post my next video.